Once again, welcome to ITSE 1345, Competency 2.2. Okay, we got to get serious with this chapter here. This is the chapter that builds the foundation for the whole class, of course. You have to be very slow and very thorough in this chapter because this is the one that basically lays the foundation for everything we're going to do. This chapter talks about the concept of block, SQL block. Remember we talked about the fact that you write an SQL statement and then you're going to put this in some mechanism, right? The mechanism that is used in SQL is called a block. The block is the mainstay for this whole process. Now the reason the block is the most vital item is because what the block does is it has what they call a declare. Now this is where you will identify all the placeholders you're going to use. Okay? Now, so this is going to store the placeholders that are going to be used. Now, once you identify the placeholders, there's a begin. Now, the begin, this is where the action occurs. This is where you do the select from where. Now, the select from where will extract the information from the database, and it will deposit that information in these placeholders. And then these placeholders will be used to execute some item. Now, going back to that payroll scenario that we talked about earlier, if you're going to do 1,000 employees and you're going to do this process, the most classic error is on the keyboard when you have the number 0 and the letter O because they're very close. So if by chance you wind up having that issue, you don't want to crash the entire payroll system because of a keystroke error. You want to be able to capture that information, extract it from the process, and go to the next element. That process is called the exception. The exception is that process that looks for items that are outside of the process that you're working with. Now, yes, it could be an error, it could be a logic, it could be a syntax, it could be a typo. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that the process doesn't die, so you capture that information and you extract it. And then you finally end. Okay? So the block is the most important item that we're going to be using. Within the block is how everything happens. If it doesn't happen in the block, it doesn't happen at all. Now, as you create these placeholders, you have to initialize them. Now, remember, okay, I said initialize. Now, remember in school you had the bigger scenario? Well, in the initialization, this is where you start developing the precision of what's going to happen. Now, there are precision in numbers and there are precision in words. So there's a process called scalar. Scalar is the term that is used to define the type of placeholder you're going to use. So are you going to use letters? Are you going to use numbers? Are you going to use dates? Are you going to have strings? Whatever placeholder you're going to use, you need to define some mechanism, and the scalar is that mechanism that defines it. Now, I would advise you to reread that section on scalars many times to make sure that you understand the concept of what's happening. Now, scalar, I believe, is on page 39 of the text, so just be sure to do that. Now, as you're doing this and you're testing this, you're going to have decisions. So this is where the process of if then comes in. If then else, then there's else if, and then there's case. So there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 different decision structures that are used. So there's the just generic if-then that everyone knows about. There's if, then, else. So you have if this happens, do this. And then there's an else if, which gives you a little stack of different, if not this, else, else, else. Or case, if this case occurs, do this. So understand those to see which tool is the appropriate one to use. Now, anytime you're extracting information, you want to loop it. So again, once again, you pick an item, you process it, you pick another one. So you have this looping mechanism that you're going to do. Chapter 2 speaks of 3 different types, loops: simple, while, and for. So just look at those, and that allows you to integrate this process. So this chapter is full with information. You have the introduction of the block, which is critical to the whole process. You have the introduction of scalar, the variable definition, which is very important to this process. You have the initialization of this process. You have the if-then in this process, and you have the loop. So there's the loop, the exception, the variables, the initialization, and the block. So there's many, many items in this chapter that are covered. So please take time, because this actually is the foundation for the whole class. And that concludes Competency 2.2.